I'm Anthony Fio, and you're listening to the Talk Harvey to Me podcast. So, welcome to another episode of the Talk Harvey to Me podcast. I'm joined by Sandra as always, and today we're going to follow up on a couple concepts that we talked about last time, including some of the diets and how they affect certain populations of the world. We're going to go through some Blue Zone chatter and kind of talk about some what's what and some stories that have been coming out and that we've been looking into, and some changes that have been going on in our society around athletics.
I'm excited for today's podcast. I feel like we're gonna get like all fired up.
Get fired up about Tom Cruise.
Not about Tom Cruise.
Did I send you the video of him being just the baddest motherfucker on the planet?
No.
He's filming. What is he filming? He's filming Mission Impossible, I believe. And they're filming on set. I want to say, don't quote me on it, somewhere mountainous and somewhere over in Europe. So maybe Sweden, Finland, something like that. And he's riding a motorcycle and he just shoots off a cliff, rides the motorcycle straight off the cliff, and he's just free falling. Like there's no there. He has a parachute, but there's no safety net. There's no wires. There's no cables. There's no stuntman. This guy is just flying off this motorcycle. The poor environment. The motorcycle just goes, fuck all over the place. They did it 6 times, so they probably littered a little bit. But he's just free falling like a badass, and then pops his chute, and they're filming him with drones as they're going. It's awesome.
He is a very epic actor. Like his stunts are amazing. Like the fact that he's an actor and does all his own stunts is really, really cool.
Yeah, it's insane. Like he's like the last Mission Impossible movie when they were filming it, he broke his ankle during filming on one of the stunts, and like they just kept rocking out.
Damn.
And then like in Top Gun, like he's actually in the plane.
Yeah, that's the coolest part. It's actually a really like funny YouTube video, and I wish I knew who it was, who he was with. It's some sort of like famous comedian guy. Have you seen it before?
No.
Oh, I'll have to send it to you. He like rides along. So this comedian guy, he like rides along with Tom Cruise in the jet. It's just really funny.
Yeah. Oh, I think I know what you're talking about, but I don't recall it per se. But he had the whole cast and crew go in there too.
Really?
Yeah, they're all in planes and they're all going to flight training. So that's why if you've seen Top Gun Maverick, which is the greatest movie of all time, which is nominated for an Oscar for Best Picture, and it should win, because 4 of the other movies I haven't even heard of, and I apparently deem myself to be the authority on what's a good movie.
Yeah, I'm definitely not the authority of what's a good movie because I don't see a lot of movies.
Yeah, definitely not. No, we would never trust you with that task. If you watch the movie, they do like these weird breathing patterns, and like they turn kind of funny, and they had to be trained to handle like the G forces. And like when you see other movies in planes where there's no actual gravity being applied, like they just turn freely, like me in my computer chair right now. But in a fighter jet, there's like this like breathing that has to compensate. It's like step by step for the G forces of the jet, which is pretty cool. And you can tell in their faces and stuff like that. And it's kind of awesome.
That is pretty cool. No, that was a really cool movie. I saw it in IMAX version, which was very, very epic. You had like a bunch of war veterans in there, like clapping along and stuff.
That's the movie that America needed last year.
They just needed to pick me up.
That it's just it's basically a love story about 2 guys, and it's in fighter jets, and it's America. Like when
what better movie is there?
Yeah, when that first intro starts and it starts the Top Gun anthem, I had chills. I had goosebumps, like literal goosebumps, like the hairs on my arms were standing up. I was so happy.
Yeah, I mean, it is a really good movie. I mean, I just like the minute it gets so cheesy like that, I like can't help but laugh.
Yeah,
but that's just me.
So
I was here for it.
Yeah, it's great. I've watched it like I've probably seen the movie like 50 times by now, so it's definitely up there.
The new one or the old one?
Well, the old one I've seen like 400 times.
Oh.
I can't get it. If I have plans on a day and it just happens to be on TV, like AMC or something like that, I will stop what I'm doing and I will watch the rest of the movie, no matter what part it's at.
Just slightly obsessed.
And then I recite it.
Oh well. I'm very happy for you.
Yeah,
this movie came out.
It was America needed it. I needed it.
Clearly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great, but anyway.
Anyway, so have you done any reading lately?
No, but I did. I really should be reading more. No, I haven't done any reading. I haven't, I'll admit. I've been very consumed with Formula One, which just started last weekend. So, which in terms of G's, right? There's 5 G's in a Formula One race car when they at their max is like 5G that they hit. So it's on trend with what with our conversation.
I like it. So you you're taking me down a rabbit hole here, and I'm gonna get in my soapbox. Cable networks are the worst thing in arguably in the history of anything entertainment wise that's ever existed on the planet. They are overpriced. Their content is terrible. They're easily influenced by the government, pharmaceutical companies. There's always a lean, all of them. There's commercials, there's ads. Every single commercial gives you diarrhea.
How did my Formula One conversation trigger this cable thing?
I'm going to get there.
Okay.
So, along comes technology, and we're like, there's got to be a better way to do this. I only watch like one channel. So, for me, I all I do is watch sports on live TV. Nothing else on live TV really interests me.
Mm.
Occasionally, I might turn like if depending if there's some crazy thing going on in the world, I might turn the news on for like 30 seconds. But that's about it because regardless of affiliation, the news is more of
It's just
news.
drama.
It's like newsertainment.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't like to really do that. Plus, I don't want to like get home after a long day and I sit down and I turn the TV on and it's like this family was killed in a fire. This other family was hit by a car. This other family was a crazy accident. There's traffic here. There's traffic there. This business is like it's just a list of bad things that are happening.
True. Very true.
And I think it's something when you look at like our stressors, our triggers, and stuff like that. If you had a bad day at work, you're going to come home and now the work not only is your little world bad, but everyone else's world bad, and like the simulation is all fucked up for that day.
Some people
Um,
love it though. That's like their jam, you know? Just get more fired up after work.
yeah,
Anyway, we digress.
I I love to be fired up, but not where I was going with that. So
Yeah.
you bring it. So cable networks are terrible. So you have the FANG stocks come up, right? Facebook, Apple,
Mm,
Google, Netflix. What's the other one? We'll leave
no
it there.
idea.
They're not even really there anymore, but they're different now. But they did come in, and you have all these internet companies, and they're like, hey, we can do the world better. And they start, you see the things that Apple's working on, you see the things that Facebook has done for like what they're doing with the metaverse. You see what they did for social media, what they did for advertising, what they did for live events and things like that. You have Google buying YouTube and making that like a mainstream thing. Now they offer like TV stuff. Netflix, of course, revolutionized the game because now I can just sit at home like a lazy person on one day and watch an entire season of a show.
It is pretty fun. I do enjoy those moments.
And then when that happened years ago, when they came around, it's like, oh, this is a revolution. And everyone knew it. And, the cable networks are like, this will never work. And haha, shame on
Yeah.
you. And everyone's like, haha, that's what the taxi industry said about Uber. That's what the hotel industry said about Airbnb. That's what the newspaper said about the internet and radio and stuff like that. And which eventually, led to podcasting. Great. Awesome. Dump the whole season on one day. Give into our sloth behavior. Why now we have shows that release weekly on a platform that was built to just dump all your content at once is the most infuriating thing of all time.
Oh, I was wondering where we were gonna end up here.
Yeah. You are telling me that you created possibly one of the greatest step ups and competitive advantages in the history of anything outside of maybe, the smartphone and or the iPhone, and you're telling me that you're just going to renege on it.
I think it probably has to do with the fact that you're more likely to get addicted and obsessed with a show if it gets released like that, where they like just trickle it into your life versus
Well,
like just one season dump.
why not just unleash pandemonium on the planet? Like
Well,
just give it all at once.
I think it really has to do with like they can't keep up with enough shows, right? So if they were to dump everything on there, then we'd be kind of fucked because all of a sudden we have nothing else to watch. We will literally reach a dead end of TV shows,
It's fine, and then you can go out and live your life and be productive. But
but then you wouldn't be on Netflix.
maybe like you look at The Last of Us. So Last of Us, HBO. Right? Granted, HBO is a cable network. However, HBO, like, they have TV shows and they can just release their shit all at once. Like, why does it have to be episodic? Just give me it all at one time. It's a competitive advantage. Lean into it. We already know cable networks are going to be defeated, not by the streaming platforms, but by the companies with the most money that are going to buy the sports rights, which will then eventually get rid of all cable networks because they can't afford to. You can't outbid Amazon or Apple or Google if they want to buy the rights to show the NFL or the NBA or any of those sports.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that's really what triggers me currently the most about the whole cable TV network piece of it. Like, we don't have cable TV anymore. So I should start by that. But we have the ESPN subscription app or subscription service, right? So we can watch current sports. You can't watch MLS anymore on ESPN because Disney bought it now. No, not Disney. Apple TV bought it. And I think you have to like pay extra to watch MLS on there. That sucks. ESPN doesn't show Formula One either. So now I bought the Formula One TV app thing, right? So I can watch my Formula One properly. You have to constantly keep buying things. So I feel like originally this whole movement of going away from cable TV was because now you can watch shows for cheaper. You just buy whatever you want to watch, right? But at this point, everyone's spending so much money on all these different services, right? And every little thing is like an extra cost. And so now it's like, why do we even pay for ESPN if everything that we actually want to watch on ESPN we have to pay extra for on a different server?
Yeah, you end up with a lot of subscriptions. Everyone's got their own streaming app.
It's ridiculous.
It'll end soon enough.
Yeah, at some point everything has to come back together again. Like, this is just insane.
Yeah.
But
So there's the soapbox. Stop
soapbox one of our episode.
stop making me wait a whole week to watch shows, and then I have to squeeze it into a weekday where I'm usually doing shit. Let me bang that shit out on Saturday, all in one shot. I want it all.
Yeah, I mean, if I could binge like some Real Housewives, like the whole season in one shot, that would be pretty epic. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm very tempted to that out because I don't want people to know that you watch The Real Housewives. I think
Listen, it is my guilty pleasure. I love basically all of them.
I'm going to be a big advocate for getting you some better content.
No, no, no. Listen, it's
As
a
a
very long obsession of mine. I love it. We cannot touch it. It's my favorite thing.
as a penalty for such behavior, I'm glad you have so many streaming services to pay for.
Let me tell you, Bravo's not one of them, though.
Yeah.
I pay for Peacock.
So, in talking about sports, there's been some things that have happened in sports lately, and I would love to hear your opinion on them, Sandra.
Oh my god, they're a little bit irritating. Is that why? It's been. Sorry, you were gonna say something.
What were you going to say?
Okay. Since I got my graduate degree in exercise physiology, this has been a long discussed debate, and I got my degree many, many moons ago of letting transgenders people. Is that the right way to say that? I should have
Trans-
researched the quote.
Transgender people. Yeah.
Transgender people, letting them play in their newly assigned sex, like letting them play in those divisions, right? So if a male transitions into a female, now that female can compete against other females in a given sport. Generally speaking, genetic men, have a leg up in different sports, right? They tend to be stronger, they tend to be faster, they tend to be overall better in the majority of sports. So, what kind of a controversy this brings now by having transgender men that turn to women now compete against females? The big question is it fair? Right? Should that be accepted? And I guess I'll just state my opinion. I don't know. I find this whole subject extremely sensitive. I get it's extremely sensitive for a lot of people, but at the same time, as a female, I don't want to be competing against a male who is just going to be automatically better than me. Is that fair to say? I think it is. As a female, I want the playing field to be as fair as possible if I'm going to be competing in something. I'm already, I kind of get very aggravated. I'm very competitive. The last thing I want to do is show up to some sort of sporting event and feel like what's the point of even competing?
Yeah, I agree with you. Now, I have a slightly different perspective because I'm a biological male. The reason that this comes up is because recently in Minnesota, there was a case of a trans woman who sued USA Powerlifting, who previously to this court ruling had a ban on transgender athletes competing in their newly assigned role. What they cited was, this is a quote: "The harm is in making a person pretend to be something different, the implicit message being that who they are is less than," the ruling said. "That is the very essence of separation and segregation, and it is what the MHRA prohibits." So USA Powerlifting is considering an appeal. I believe that ruling only applies in the state of Minnesota, but there are a lot of states that allow transgender athletes to compete in college athletics, youth athletics, powerlifting, and every league kind of has their own thing at this point. You have the International Olympic Committee also allows transgender athletes to compete, and they recommend it to certain sports leagues that they consider their own thing. And now we kind of have like this dividing line of like, this organization will allow it, this one won't, this one won't. But basically, in Minnesota, and I'm sure Minnesota's not the only state, but this just happened to be one of the more recent ones that was overturned and made possible. A biological man who transitions to a woman can now compete in the sport of powerlifting against women.
And that's, as a female, I find that a little bit unfair. No, I don't know. I will say, like, if my kid turns out to be transgender, right, and he becomes a she and would like to compete, I don't know what the right solution there is. Okay. Like, I don't know what a good alternative solution is. I really couldn't tell you. But it is, as a female, like, who was interested once in doing a powerlifting competition, I find that very unfair.
I agree, and a lot of people have spoken out about it. So before we go any further, let me just say I am a big advocate of letting people do whatever the fuck they want, as long as it
Same.
doesn't hurt anybody else. It doesn't interfere with anyone else's ability to live the kind of life that they want. Obviously, the exception being, you want to be a murderer or something like that, or a serial killer, right? But if you want to identify as a toaster, I'm all for it. Like, if that's what helps you get through the day, if that was what makes you happy, that's what makes you fulfilled, gives you fulfillment, by all means. If you are gay, awesome. If you are not gay, great. If you are transgender, awesome. Like, I hope all of those decisions work out for you. And I mean that sincerely and genuinely. And I hope that you get the kind of life that you want and you have every opportunity afforded to you, with the exception of athletics.
Yeah.
Because some of the things, so this is one example, powerlifting in Minnesota. We had the other most recent thing that happened was Leah Thomas. She is a swimmer for, I want to say, the University of Pennsylvania or Pittsburgh,
No.
one of the two. They recently just had their championship, and she won. Now, if you look at the podium picture, you will see Leah Thomas in first place. You have the second place finisher was the silver medalist from Beijing in the women's 500 freestyle. And the height difference between them is about 7 inches.
I'm going to pull this up. What was the name of the Asian one you said?
Who?
The second place winner?
Oh, I didn't. What's her name? We'll have to. Where is she at?
Oh, I think I'm pulling it up.
Yeah.
Oh, holy crap.
Yeah. So there's a huge difference there. Also, if you'll notice, and again, listen, I understand there's stages to transgenderism or transitioning, sorry. There's stages to becoming transgender and there's where you transition and if you're pre-op and post-op. Leah Thomas also still has her penis. And she's been on HRT for about a year. So HRT, hormone replacement treatment, my understanding of it is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sandra, when you are taking that, you're switching the hormone levels for your body.
Yeah, when you go through hormone replacement.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're basically trying to, yeah.
It's very, also like, even if you're, not transgender, like for me, like if I was 50 and my T levels were low and I start taking testosterone, that's hormone replacement therapy. So if you look at this particular event, right? So she won that event. She is now the number one ranked women's swimmer in the NCAA. She's beating podiumed Olympians, and it's stirring a lot of obvious controversy, right? If you look at the size difference between her, the thing that I find super interesting, and I don't want to assume malintent on anyone. I'm not like, I would hate to say, hey, someone's doing this just for a game, just for a competitive advantage. Before she transitioned, she was William Thomas, the 455th ranked men's swimmer in collegiate swimming. Switches with, and a year later is the number one swimmer in female in the female division.
Yeah. Uh, I mean, look, and I feel like I should just preface by saying this by saying I want people to be accepted no matter who they are, right? I truly do. Just like how Anthony stated before, I just feel like I have to say it too before we get a tremendous amount of backlash over this conversation. Like, I want people to be accepted. I hate hearing stories how people were like, I don't know, um, when bad things happen to them just because of who they believe that they are, or who they are, right? Or who they represent. I think that's horrible on across the board. But this is, I mean, the picture, like, you really have to Google these pictures. Leah Thomas, LIA. I mean, it is quite striking. Very,
Yeah.
very striking. I mean, there's one thing to visualize it. There's second part, this another thing to actually see it. I mean, it is very, very striking, and like, it's an obvious competitive advantage that she has. And I think it just makes the conversation really challenging because these people, they should have a place in sports as well, right? Like, Leah Thomas, like, she deserves to also be competing. She deserves also to be participating in her hobbies and her goals. And if this is a career for her, her career, right? Um, but at the same time, it affects so many people. Like, we need to find a better solution to this. And I don't know what that other solution looks like, to be honest, unless we have like another division for transgenders, where they can compete in. That could be an idea, but there's probably not enough of them, so that probably is not going to work out. Offering two first places is probably also not realistic because the last thing you want to do is to continue to have them stick out, right? Like, you're trying to integrate them, not cause them to feel even more different again. So I really don't know what the right solution here is.
Yeah, then it's a tough one, and a lot of people don't. And you have the knee-jerk reaction for a lot of governors was to completely ban it initially. Some sports federations banned it initially, some didn't. I think that there's two things that kind of go against this. I think you look at our politics in this country; they're very polarizing, and I think this is a situation where it maybe doesn't need to be, hey, this is a left thing or a right thing. This is just a
Correct.
thing that we are now, that our society has evolved to, and it's just a part of our society. And for the most part, no one really, like, it's not like the masses are like, oh my god, like you can't be trans and stuff like that. Like there's certain parts of that ideology that people conflict with, but for the most part, like, hey, do your thing, whatever, like live your life and things like that. When you look at something like this, it's like you got to do something. And the thing that's kind of like, it almost like hurts the transgender movement because Leah Thomas like has gotten so much backlash, and you're putting her in the spotlight, and it's in direct juxtaposition of what everyone is going to view as a right thing. To put it in perspective, if LeBron James woke up tomorrow and decided to play in the WNBA, he would be he's already the best player in the world in the on the men's side of things. He would be the great like the disparity between those two. It would be infinite.
Yeah.
And there's definitely talented women's basketball players. There's talented women in every sport, and they bust ass and they could kick the shit out of most average people. But when you have in situations where you have like an athlete and they change genders, but they've been on just think of it this way: they've been on steroids for their entire life, which or I guess steroids is a bad way to say it, but they've been taking testosterone for their life. Think of it that way: the purest form of testosterone for their entire life. They hit puberty, they grow up male, they learn all these skills while they are biologically have better bone density, a bigger skeleton, more muscle mass. Because they have more muscle mass, they have a bigger heart because that heart has to pump blood. They also have bigger lung capacity. Like those are just things that we know about differences between genders.
Yeah.
And then you switch, and we can appreciate the switch and respect that. And you're still human, you're still a person, you have rights and access and things of that nature. But it opens up like such just a divide because you go and you just not saying it's intentional because again we don't want to assume malintent, but we know that there are definitely very small portions of every population that are out out for narcissism and stuff like that. But it's like you go and let's say it's for genuine causes, you accidentally just shit on the entire body of work that's of someone's life.
Yeah.
And when you look at like, I don't understand why you don't take the opportunity to say, okay, why don't we have, you compete together, but we have a different score sheet, and I'm pioneering transgender sports.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like,
Yeah.
as opposed to just forcing it into a conflict where probably a lot of some of our society is probably not ready to just accept that that's a thing. But because of the nature of the differences in the biology of the two genders, it called it like it's just it's a tough road to go down. And it's like, well, how do you fix that? And it's not like, well, you have your league and like you toe on the line of segregation, but at the same time, it's like, well, wait, this is like it's clearly unfair in some cases. And that's not to say every case, because Leah Thomas is not faster than Katie Ledecky. Shout out to Katie Ledecky. She's an absolute beast of a woman swimmer.
True.
But like she almost in 12 months went from rank 455 to number one.
Mm.
And that presents like a huge issue. And if you look at anyone who has a daughter, and quite frankly, like if I have a daughter and there's a very good chance that we're going to be competitive because I'm athletic. She's probably going to lean into athletics. We'll, play sports. And one day, like I'm going to have to explain to her, like, hey, like this guy just happened to switch. And what if like you switch in the same age and you're in the same generation and you just have to like because that example again, LeBron James decides to play women's basketball and you're playing in the era of LeBron and you really can't accomplish your ultimate goal
Yeah.
with and I'm not with the possibility that there's a disadvantage, the disadvantage is usually very obvious.
Yeah. I think also the most heated debate is really about men that transition to being a female and then competing in female sports. We really don't have so many heated debates about women that become men then compete in male sports because they're probably not taking away podium places, to be honest, from other men, or else that'll probably also be another heated discussion in there. There probably needs to be some sort of rules around all of this. I think that's fair to say. Like, at what point did they transition? You know, um, you know, what stage are they within their transition? I think that's fair to like look into as well because of that competitive edge that men do have. But at the same time, like, is that, HIPAA compliant then to say, what part of your transition are you? And you can only classify for certain sports if you are at a certain part there. That's probably also not very HIPAA compliant.
Yeah. So what I was reading was that because of this in the NCAA, you now have to produce testosterone tests for 4 months prior to any event championship. You have to disclose where you are in the transition period. So like Leah
Oh,
Thomas, for
you
instance,
do?
yeah, Leah Thomas, for instance, has a deeper voice than me.
Oh,
And
interesting.
I pay full respect to her process and transition, but just where she's at right now, she has a deeper voice than I do. Um, so you do have to. It looks like you do. You will have to disclose those, and you will have to like go for testing and things like that. But like, but also like that. One of the arguments is that you've been on testosterone your whole life. You hit puberty. You had this coursing through your blood. If you look at the USADA regulations, which is the administration that or the organization that does all the drug testing, what's allowed and what's not in just about most sports, especially in like UFC, for instance, and Olympics and Olympic drug testing and anti-doping. They're like the world's leading anti-doping agency. In addition to WADA, they ban testosterone because it has an anabolic effect on the human body.
Hmm.
And like the fact that it's just one of those things where it's viewed as like no way you have to accept it. Like we're the same as women. It's like in some instances, the course of that, like what would it wouldn't be the worst thing if you weren't. And
Right.
it was like we're our own thing that just happened, and we're a great community. We're great people. We can do a lot. We're going to pioneer these new ventures in athletics. And sure, if women want to compete with us, that's fine. But like, you can't just like force that and you show up and suddenly you're getting smoked. Like if I were to like if me and you were to do a powerlifting competition and I identified as a woman, right? And I transitioned. Like I've never competed in powerlifting. I'd probably do very very well going into some of these meets and events and stuff like that. And like yeah, it's a crazy
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think also too, it's almost like I think in one way it's also dangerous to open up this gate, like this door now of letting former men compete with against women because how is that going to change the sport for women? If you're going up against someone who grew up as a male, does that then cause women who are going through puberty to say, you know what, like maybe I need to make changes. Maybe I need to start taking certain like hormones, stuff like that, just so I can compete against my competitors when I'm older. I don't know. Like, what changes does this all cause? What's the domino effect of this? But at the same time, I do want people like Leah Thomas to find a place to compete as well, right? It's like I want her to also have her place within the sport. Um, but at the same time, like, that's one person versus a bunch of other women who are trying to make it in that sport, right? So like I don't know. I don't know. There is no answer, I think. And I think I mean, ever since that I've been hearing about this debate, no one's ever come to a good conclusion around it. There is no good solution, I think.
There's no solution that will be acceptable and not attacked with hate.
Yeah.
Like that instant, oh my god, like you're disenfranchising us, and like you're diminishing our class, where like this very thing diminishes women's class, which is a huge issue because no one's class should be diminished.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Agreed. I think it's also important that we do have these kind of conversations within society without people being so offended by them because like this debate exactly like this is a very important conversation to have because it opens up room for creativity to maybe brainstorm good solutions and good ideas but at the same time like it's not like we're anti-transgender, right? Like we're not or that we're not accepting of them. We're the complete opposite of them. We're very like accepting of it. um but I think we need to be able to have these conversations, and I don't even know if we have a place in society at the current moment where we can't even have these conversations without people being so offended by it.
Yeah, I know, and it's like there's such a thing as the pussification of America. Like it's a real thing. Like everyone gets offended by something, and we're obviously transitioning topics here for what I'm about to say. But if I say something that offends you, but it's like a true statement, like I'm sorry, not really. Like that's like a personal thing. Like there are plenty of things that people could say that could offend me. I'm Puerto Rican. Yeah, you could say offensive shit to Puerto Rican. Sometimes most people think I am a white male, which apparently is a bad thing these days. Anything like that, I'm very hard to offend. I don't really care. Like most people's opinions doesn't matter to me. I go through my day without even thinking about the opinions of most people, and it does make it hard to like have like constructive debate. And like when you have debate, you can have a crazy wrong idea and again arguing against someone who has a crazy right idea, but through that exchange of ideologies and words and tokens and viewpoints, like you learn both sides learn something, and oftentimes you come to like a mutual thing. That's like the tenet that our government, for instance, was founded on. That's the tenet on like, most communal societies, like roundtables and things, stuff like that. That's how you get things done.
Yeah. I think because we as a society are becoming so sensitive about everything, I think it's actually stunting our ability to grow, or stunting our ability to be more creative, for us to have discussions. I mean, just look at even at Hollywood, right? Like what good movies has like classic Hollywood actually produced, right? Everything is so like groomed now that it can't possibly be funny, or without it being, it can't be offensive anymore or anything, right? So even like things in the humor department, right? Like The Office, that's kind of where I'm going at. If you made The Office nowadays, like how offended would people be? But because it was made whatever 10 years ago, like that's why it's okay to watch still, and it's not as offensive, right? But if nowadays you would make those same jokes, oh my god, like the
Yeah.
horror.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay to be offended, to be honest, about things in life. Like, it's okay that you get your feelings hurt sometimes. That's how you grow thick skin.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's the same thing like in our industry where you have like the fat phobia, like accusation that comes out all the time. And it's like, what? Like, no.
You mean that you can't tell someone that they're fat?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also like another fine line to tiptoe, right? Because you don't want to hurt someone's feelings, right? But in reality, like if you're, if you know, being fat makes you also unhealthy, right? And in our industry, we're all about, making, becoming healthier. And if you can't address someone as being fat and being honest about that, yeah, that's an issue. At the same time, you shouldn't say it offensively either, like, you piece of shit, you're so fat. Like you shouldn't say it like that either, right?
Just go out of your way to be like, hey man, like that's your fourth hot dog today. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? But like I'm always very direct and transparent. If you like, I've had clients that have asked me like, hey, am I weak for like, you know, my weight and my size and how long I've been lifting? And I'm like, absolutely, you're 100% weak. I owe it to you to be honest to you with you. And like, I'll tell you straight to your face. Like, if you ask me if you're fat and you are and you're obese, I will tell you directly to your face, like you are fat. Like, but the good thing is there's hope, and let's do this the right way. If you never bring it up, I'm never going to go out of my way to be like, oh, you're fucking fat and like you're the worst, like, because obviously I don't believe those things. But if you ask me, like, yes, you are, and that's not bullying. That's just an observation of the reality of it, and
Yeah.
like the lack of. So imagine like if you asked me, and I was just like, no, you look great. I just fucking lied to you. That's worse than me calling you fat. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I don't know. I just feel like, I mean, of course, every generation says, the next generation is so much weaker and so much more of a pussy. But I mean, I do feel that way that, I grew up with much more criticism around me and much more, I don't know. I just had to have thicker skin as a kid than I feel like nowadays that, kids have to have.
Yeah.
And I want people to grow up with some adversity. I want them to have to like fight back a little bit, I want them to have to stand up for themselves. And I don't know, by us just making everything so easy for everyone, and so like you can't hurt someone's feelings, like it's a bad thing. It's just it changes us. And I don't know what
Well,
the change is gonna look like.
we also have that thing where back in the day, life was a little harder, and
Yeah.
hard times create strong people,
Yeah.
and then strong people create easy times. Easy times create weak people,
Maybe,
and
we've had it too easy for way too long, and it just keeps producing, softer and softer people.
that's 100% what it is.
Yeah.
And that's going to segue right into my next thing that I wanted to talk about.
Tell me.
Soft people. No, I'm kidding. So, also in my reading of the week, I came across. I was looking at. I'm very fascinated with Japanese culture. If you couldn't tell by my review of The Last Samurai, starring Tom Cruise, the one and only. So, birth rate is something that comes up a lot in society conversations. I'm not talking about pro-life, pro-choice, by the way. I'm just talking about as a civilization, how many people do you produce, right? So we've been on the AI conversation a lot. The whole world is on the AI conversation right now. The belief, obviously, if you look at sci-fi movies, AI takes over the world. We don't need humans anymore, and things of that nature, right? So one of the things I think Elon Musk was talking about this as far as what are the threats to civilization as a whole, like humanity in general. And yeah, obviously you got like, oh, what if a meteor hits us and we're like the dinosaurs? What if it's like World War III and someone drops a nuke and we all die and so on. And he was talking about it's actually going to be population collapse where we don't have a birth rate that's high enough to sustain people. And how that birth rate is decided, it's like how many people per uh, woman that you have in your society. But it also like you have a death rate as well, like how many people die every year, how many people are born every year. If the number of people that die every year far surpasses the number of people that are born every year, eventually you won't have enough people for the wheels on the bus to go round and round. And I was looking, so I've been fascinated with Japanese culture. We were talking about we wanted to dive into blue zones today, which we'll jump into in a minute. And I came across an article. They just did a study in Japan. Japan is actually seeing the first regression in birth rate,
Hmm.
where the birth rate is reaching a point where in a few years it might not be, it'll start to be at the entry level of the point where it's not enough to sustain their civilization.
What I find interesting is that when I was a kid, I remember reading this National Geographic magazine, and it was about how we're going to have one day a certain amount of billion of people on this planet, and how are we going to sustain life, right? Now we're having a decrease in population. Everyone's freaking out about that.
But we're not, to be clear, the population hasn't, we're not decreasing yet.
I know, but there's like that, like it's going to happen, right? So I just find it funny how like at first we're freaking out because we're gonna be too many people. Now we're freaking out that might not be enough people. Like you just can't make anyone happy these days anymore.
Yeah, but it's true. What if the plot twist is because one of the things that will affect the birth rate of a nation, obviously, is contraceptives. The more availability of them, more people using them, cost of living, inflation. You look at the evolution of the family structure that we have. We have more single guys than ever. We have more people deciding to not be married. We have more people deciding they don't want kids because they don't want to either bring them into the world for their beliefs, or they can't afford to, or they think they can't afford to, or they don't want to deal with the stress, or they're not ready to, or they're working on things and they have other ambitions and stuff like that. So as that kind of changes, because our society is very far from what it used to be, where you lived on a farm, you tended to everything, and you had kids, and the kids helped on the farm, and that was life. You start to see these things pop up, and these questions arise, where what is that point going to look like? And now we have AI, and it's like, okay, well now it's all right if that starts to happen because there are certain things, there are roles in society that people possess now that are going to get replaced by artificial intelligence. It's just inevitable at this point.
And on top of it, we have fertility issues too. So just throw that on top of it, then
And that,
yeah. But to go back to your blue zone thing, I mean, every human though wants to live as long as possible.
yeah. So I read a book recently called Ikigai, and it's the Japanese word for purpose for life.
Can you spell it? Because it has a very interesting spelling.
It's Ikigai.
Yeah, it's funny.
So the book is The Japanese Secret to a Long and Happy Life. And it refers to finding your purpose, finding your meaning in life. And one of the things that it does is it goes into Okinawa, Japan, and it looks at the lifestyle of the people that live there. So, for those of us that don't know, a blue zone is a particular community in the world that has a higher than normal population of people who live 100 years. So, to put it in perspective, in Okinawa, where's my, I have to edit there.
I have the websites up, by the way. But don't tell me how many people live there, over 100.
Okay. So, to put it in perspective, in Japan, Jesus, I'm dying. In Japan, there are 83,000 people who are over 100 years old.
No way.
Yes.
That's crazy.
In the United States, there are 88,000 people who are over 100 years old.
Really?
The difference is the United States have triple the population of Japan.
Mm. Damn, there's a lot of people that are over 100. I didn't know it was like that common.
Well, we have a population of 300 and about what is it, 357 million, something like that, in the United States, and only less than 100K are uh,
Yeah, but
are
how
over
many people do
100.
you know that have ever been over 100 years old? Like I know one person.
I don't think I know
Maybe.
any. I don't know anyone that was over 100
Yeah, that's
personally, anyway.
crazy.
So when you look at blue zones, the reason we're talking about it because last week we talked about the Mediterranean diet. So what they've been doing, researchers have gone out and they've looked at blue zones and they're saying like, okay, this is a little weird. We have these clusters of populations that all have higher chances of people living over 100. It's very common actually in there. You took me away from a thing. Where's the
How can I help you?
Gotcha. Okay. So it's very common for them to live over 100. And they went and they looked at, well, what are the blue zones and how do we find them? And like start researching them. So the top 10 blue zones worldwide are Okinawa, Japan, Sardinia, Italy, Nicoya, Costa Rica, Icaria, Greece, Loma Linda, California, USA, the Greek Isle of Crete. Sorry, I probably butchered that.
Great.
Crete, Bama County in China, Vilcabamba, Ecuador, Hunza Valley in Pakistan, the island of Ogliastri, Italy. Right.
Oh,
So
interesting.
when I looked at that list, first I was shocked somewhere in the United States had one. Also, like, what's the other thing that you notice about all 10 of those?
They're on like by the same like how do you call it? Um longitude, latitude of the earth. They're all along the Mediterranean.
Are
No,
they?
that's not right. No, they're all I don't know. Aren't they like can we edit that part out? I don't want to sound stupid.
Yeah. So what did you notice as what they have in common? You're pretty close.
They probably like their climate that they live in.
They're all close to water.
Oh, okay. That was close-ish.
So we talked about the Mediterranean diet being a great option. Mediterranean diet, to do it well and have whole foods, right? You need to be close to water. You need to have an availability of fish, which has a higher fat content, which generally is going to be associated with higher health markers. That's one of the common themes in the blue zones, which is very interesting. So I think
It's like
Pakistan.
super fascinating. I mean, so when I, in preparation for this podcast, I started like I just typed in like blue zones into Google, right? I wanted to see what kind of popped up. And there is a bluezones.com. I think it's like registered, trademarked, whatever. But there's actually like certifications that communities can get for being a certified blue zone. And it's basically like, you know, how walkable it is. I don't know, there's like the other parts to it, but it's very fascinating. Like they're trying to make more blue zone projects in the United States. Like they're doing some in beach cities, California, Fort Worth, Texas. Like they're trying to make these like blue zone cities, which is very interesting.
Yeah. So the reason they're trying to do this is because they looked at these communities and here's what they found. From a dietary perspective, they ate a lot of plants and vegetables, whole food diets. They had a lot of fish. A lot of things were unprocessed. You look at physical activities, these generally tend to be very, very rural areas. So you're not going to see tons of telephone poles. You're not going to see not a lot of the technology integration that you see in like an urban area. It's very rural. There's not a lot of infrastructure. So you have to walk. Some of them are mountainous. You have to, climb a mountain to get to the grocery store and then climb back down every single day. So they're always kind of doing something. They also have a lot of social connection, right? So they have like this tribe and like one of their de-stressors, they'll hang out, they'll go to happy hour, they'll just start dancing randomly. Like everyone in the village will just come out and they'll just start dancing together. They'll go for walks together, they'll go for hikes. Very rarely do you ever see gyms. That's the crazy thing that I think looking at the data is that there are no gyms in blue zones typically in these cities where you have all these people that are living. They're just daily active, right? So it's very common for them. You'll see 100-year-old people just going out to the river, fishing their food for the night. The other big thing that I saw, and this is what lines up with the with Ikigai. So it's about finding your purpose in life, and kind of the concept of the book is the key to living a long life and being not so much stress free, but maybe mitigating that stress is finding things that you're passionate about that introduce you into a flow state. So when you look at your daily life and all the things that you do in a day and how many things bring you into that flow state, right? And that flow state is I'm doing an activity and I've lost track of time. And for many of us, that happened the last time that happened, we were children and we got wrapped up in something that we found enjoyable. We got a hobby, a sport, a passion. You were knitting, you were gardening, and you're like, oh, the day got away from me. I was just having such a good time. And these people have these purposes. And so you don't find Walmart to get your grocery stores. You go to this guy that runs the little grocery store shop and he's a farmer. And then everyone on the island has like that purpose or area. They have like that purpose. And you've got a shoe guy, you've got a clothing guy, you got the farmer guy, you got the doctor guy. And what you can see is like everyone has their purpose for existing. Like you've got, you know, there's so every single day, like they get up and they're like, well, I got to go do this thing because I'm the guy that does this for the community. And like that is my purpose and their reason for living. And even in some of these societies, like they drink and they smoke and they still are able to kind of balance everything, have a good diet, have an active lifestyle. And
Yeah.
it just leads to tremendous health benefits, which is fascinating. And it's kind of like I didn't find like for me playing as a kid that was fun. You lose track of time. You're around a good group of people socializing. You lose track of time. You're like, oh my god, like next thing you know, it's like time travel. It's like 3 hours later, or you're playing a board game with people you haven't seen in forever. I didn't find that again until I switched to personal training. I worked in retail for 10 years and I counted every minute of every day. There was very rarely a time where I was like, oh wow, the day felt like it was like 20 minutes long. But I've had, days in the gym training where that was like that. And
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it's great to like see and put in practice. Now, obviously every day is not like that for me. I mean, some days at the end of the day, work is work,
You
to
know,
a degree.
and I think it's important that like we actually do talk about this because I think it's so important that we develop habits or that we still find hobbies that we can get that we can kind of lose ourselves in a little bit at any age, right? But it becomes even more important when you get older and you stop working. And because like right now, work, if you are a working individual, work is usually the thing that consumes your life, right? Or even if you are a parent, or stay at home parent, like that, like your kid just like, rules your life. But it's really important that you cultivate things that you enjoy to do that you can carry out even as you get older. That was one thing that my grandfather, he's like 86 years old. He's taking like he is like super active. He actually would fall into all of these buckets for the blue zones. And he always said he had never had a job that he really enjoyed, right? So he'd be the guy, like Anthony says, like counting out the minutes for his job. I mean, he enjoyed it, but it was a job that brought him a paycheck that he needed to feed his family. But he's very creative. He's very much into art and making like sculptures and all of that. And that's like, something that he started to really get into. Um, at a very early age, and he always said, Sandra, it's important that you start building and making hobbies now that you can lose yourself in when you get older, because as you get older, there's less and less, I don't know, things that you can possibly find enjoyment in, right? You start having you can lose yourself to the mindset of like, oh, I'm getting older now. What's the point? What's the point? But that kind of mindset ages you. So it's really important that you do, you keep a positive mindset about getting older. And that's even like one of the things in the blue zones too. When you start clicking through this website, you find different communities and like what helps in these different communities to keep them young or keep them, being able to age, shall we say. And a lot of it has to do with, they find a purpose in their day that's that they can have even, well beyond retirement, right? And that's just so important.
Yeah,
I'm on a little
absolutely.
soapbox there.
No, no, it's a good thing. It's very important. We all know people that are like 27 and they're already 100 years old,
Yeah. Oh, for
and
sure.
they lock themselves into, oh, this was the goal and done. I'm done, and this is just the way things are now, and there'll be no change, drastic change. And some people like it happens because you get into a job and things like that, and maybe excuse me, the thought of entrepreneurship is daunting, or following your passion were daunting. I mean, I think everyone has a dream that they've given up on at some point, and a lot of it goes into like, what was that cost to get you to give up? Like, was it 60K a year? Was it 70K a year? Was it 100K? And you'll just
Yeah.
drone away in an office and forget the fact that you were a great artist. Like, you loved running, you loved the outdoors, you loved taking care of animals, whatever your hobby or passion is. And it kind of gives meaning to that kind of thing where it's like everyone has two lives. The second one starts when you realize you only have one,
Right.
and it's like you reach that point. And but the important thing is, like, when do you reach that point? Like, when do you sit down and look at your life and be like, I hate everything that I do, and kind of look at it and say, well, I can kind of do whatever the fuck I want, and here are the things that I would like to do, and here's a way that I can provide for myself while I'm doing the things that I like to do, and like make those life changes. And the hope is it happens very early. I mean, I wish it happened for me much sooner. It didn't happen for me until I was 28, 29, something like that. But yeah, it's definitely something that if you look at these cultures and communities, like, it's clearly paying huge dividends to them. Um, and like, they're not working out. Like, they'll do like some yoga, some tai chi in some of these places. They like to dance. They're active. They're climbing mountains at 90 just to go get some water. Like, they're,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And like, it's just, and it speaks amazingly to, like, when you hear it preached, like, hey, go outside, get some activity, get some sunlight, like, do
Yeah.
things. And you look at like where we are now with some of our health markers and indicators that we've talked about, and it's like we're so far off. So Sandra was talking about where researchers have gone, they've put together like kind of like a roadmap, and like, how would we take some of our communities and turn them into a blue zone? Like, so obviously New York City, you're not going to turn into a blue zone, or any capital city. You're not making that into a blue zone. You could have aspects of it where like it's got a nicer feel to, but some of those areas are going to be pretty hard, but you can definitely create them somewhat. So they're trying to go through and put through like what works there and how can that be implemented here. Now, there's obviously drawbacks because they're very rural. So like, they might not have access. They might get one plane into the area or island a day, and then like, if you break your leg and you're bleeding out, you might be going to meet the wizard. But um, it's one of those things where, like, even without like true advanced medicine of today, like, they're still living that long with there's almost virtually no obesity. They don't really have they way less chronic disease, way less heart conditions, and like all their health markers are phenomenal. And think about it. There's like, if you look at them cognitively, like, they're still there, like in their 90s and hundreds. And some people are, some people aren't, and there are other factors to that. I get that, but that's something that we know you can help your brain health through nutrition and diet and your lifestyle and stuff like that. And that's like, they're like living proof of it.
There's actually on this Blue Zone website, there's a true vitality test. And you can go through the test and see like what is your life expectancy based upon the results of the test, and what's your potential life expectancy. So my healthy life expectancy is 72.4 years. And then it says your life expectancy is 87.2, but my potential is 97.3. I would personally like to live to 100. So I'm gonna, and then it gives you like tips on like what you can do. So it's like, socialize more. I mean, because I could just stay at home all day, right? And just like minimize my socialization. But I understand the power of socialization and what it adds to you. It's like do more of this, you do less of that, right? Have faith, right? Um, it's very interesting. I really do like think it's kind of fun to check out if you want to. They even have like a checklist, like a kitchen checklist, a bedroom checklist. It's kind of fun. I really got really deep into this website. So that way, like if you don't have access to a blue zone community, but you're interested in it, you can start making your environment to be more blue zone friendly. And I think the earlier you adopt this, the better off you're going to be. And this really much falls in line to living a healthier life anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And you talk about life expectancy. The life expectancy in Okinawa, Japan is number one in the world. It's 84 years old for women. It's 78 for men. Comparison to the rest of the world, it's 73 with every other place combined, as far as average in there. So
Interesting. Yeah. They even have recipes on here. Oh, love
yeah,
recipes.
I want. So you said you wanna live to be 100. I wanna live to be a more I would love to live forever, like, maybe you get, like, 500 years. Here's why.
Why?
At some point, we are going to figure out a way to frost the entire Pop-Tart, and I wanna be there for that.
I mean, maybe that'll happen, like, sooner than forever.
Apparently not, because 'cause they're still no reason why the edges of the Pop-Tart are worse than the edges on a sandwich that you make, with bread.
So if what if though, like, sooner than forever, they make the edges of of your Pop-Tart frosted? Are you willing to, like are you willing to call it quits then?
We will move on to the next advancement where all my episodes appear immediately at the tip of my fingers.
Okay, fair. Yeah. I mean, I don't need to live forever personally. But I've always been very much interested in like how to age gracefully. I see my grandparents do it and they have like such a healthy outlook on life. I mean, my grandfather literally made his tombstone like before he even turned 60. And he's in his garden. He's like, in case I die, this is the tombstone that I want. Like, I mean, everything's like prearranged, right? But
It's
he's
ki
like a
it
very health look.
it's kinda badass that he made it himself.
Yep.
Did he write, like, a quote into it?
Honestly, like, he puts on the side of the house, like, you really have to go out of your way to look at it. I don't really like to see it, to be honest. It's like a weird sensation in
N
my opinion,
no,
but
no, no, did he write a quote on it?
I
Like,
don't remember. That's what I was trying to get at. I don't remember because I don't
ah,
like to go see it that much. But I know he also
gotcha.
made a statue angel, which is like the height of a small child to go with it.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think this is like super cool. And then honestly, I would recommend anyone to go check out this website for a little bit, and just dabble around this blue zone thing, because it's like the simple little things that can, really make a huge contribution to your life.
Yeah, for sure, and a lot of these things are very easy to put into your life. So, like, if life expectancy revolves around a part of socialization, I'm probably fucked. But
We're both
for
fucked.
for you guys out there, yeah, seeing as I live my life like Batman minus the vigilante part. For you listeners out there, right? Find your community, your tribe of people, the people that have similar interests with you, that have the same hobbies. Like, those are your people. Spend as much time as possible with them. Be active with them. They're going to take you far, apparently.
Yeah, for sure. You know, oh, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. I just hear the baby crying like crazy in the background. Do you hear the baby crying?
Now I can.
Okay. Um, fuck, what was I gonna say? I forgot. What were you just talking about?
What was I talking about?
That we're fucked that we're not socializing.
Oh yeah,
Oh, I
no,
remember now what I was gonna say. I remember now. It's usually like the easiest things that are the easiest things to implement that are the hardest things to actually implement. It's like, oh, just drink more water. Like, how simple is that in your day? And like, how hard is it actually to drink more water? Even like taking your supplements, like just take your goddamn multivitamin, right? Like, why is that so hard? But people forget to take it all the time. It's usually like the easiest things that are the hardest things to do. I would
yeah.
love for someone to explain to me why.
It's funny if everyone in the world that had a fitness goal just went to bed 1 hour earlier, it would make
Oh,
that goal much easier to accomplish. However, that's the hardest thing to do.
yeah. The bed goal is definitely hard because I don't know, I can get like lost in my phone, which I know is terrible to look at your phone before you go to bed, but it's how I unwind and I'm okay with it. But it really is hard to go to bed an hour earlier.
I have a great idea for you to unwind.
What?
Watch The Last Samurai.
No. That's probably not how I'm gonna unwind, especially if everyone dies at the end. I need like a happy ending for bedtime. I'm a child.
Yeah,
We watched Boardwalk Empire. We're
so
on our
good.
last season.
Oh my god, such a good show.
Yeah, and so there's one episode where, like, I'm not gonna explain exactly what it is in case you haven't watched it yet, but, like, someone dies at the end, right? He was my favorite character on the show, and I couldn't go to sleep for, like, 2 hours after. I needed to watch lots of happy things so I wouldn't go too depressed to bed.
Are you worried that if you go to bed depressed, you have a bad dream?
I just don't like the feeling. You know, it might trigger something. And like, why go, like, sleep is a long time. Not for me right now, but for the most part, sleep is a long time. I want to have a positive sleep experience.
Yeah, you can't have those anymore.
No.
That's the trade off for creating a person.
Yeah. I mean, it is getting better. Like, I am getting more hours, but yeah. Honestly, I don't even remember what it feels like to sleep through the night. If you told me I could go sleep through the night tomorrow, I don't even think I could do it. I would wake up because I'm so used to it now.
I have no sympathy.
I wasn't really looking for sympathy, but I'm offended that you don't have any.
The only thing that wakes me up in the middle of the night is when I fall asleep on both my arms and I can't feel them, and then I get stuck in this face down position, and I'm like, well, shit, how do I get out of this one? Huh?
I kind of wish a child upon you that screams all night long.
How dare you put that evil on me?
But probably be your poor wife or girlfriend or fiance, whoever will have to deal with it.
There's a few steps
Yeah.
before we start handing out those titles.
Oh, they're a blessing. They all say. No, I love my child very much. Before people come after me.
Yeah, the two people that talk to most to currently are both have newborns.
Yeah, you probably talk to us a lot less than before they were born.
No, I talk to my buddy the same amount, if not more, actually.
He's a male though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Equality question mark?
No, no, no. Well, more like honestly, equality goes out the window once you have a baby, let me tell you, because men can't breastfeed. It's just the matter of the fact. So
Yeah.
you can do all the
You
quality shit you want to do in the world. You can do all the pregnant male emojis you want to do. But some things don't change.
careful now. Now you don't sport bet, so that would eliminate the need for us to talk rapid fire for a long time.
I don't support bet, no.
Yeah. So
But you should really get into Formula One if you haven't already.
I've been thinking about it. I've been watching you.
Ugh, obsessed. In case anybody wants to know, because it is a big part of my life, I am switching teams this season. I'm no longer team Red Bull. I'm switching over to team Mercedes. It'd be nice if Lewis Hamilton won his 8th world championship. That'd be kind of cool.
I thought you were about to say that he won, and he's like, I was like, well, isn't he like the most famous one?
No, no, the past 2 seasons, Verstappen has been winning. I think it'd just be cool if, because like no one has won 8 world championships yet, not even Michael Schumacher. So it'd be cool if he would be the first person.
It's awesome.
Yeah, especially because my son's middle name is Lewis, so I think that'd just be cool.
We should get him on the podcast when he wins his 8th.
That, you know how cool that would be? Oh, I would die.
I wonder if they have like intra-race nutrition.
Do
Like,
what?
is that
Oh,
do they like is there intra-race nutrition for a car driver? I would assume they have water and stuff like that, but like is there
I
like
don't know
some
about
kind
the
of
water.
solution? Like,
So I don't know about the water. I've never heard them actually talk about nutrition on the show, which would be really interesting if they did. But they don't really have time to stop and eat.
well,
So
no,
it's like an hour and a half.
I understand. I'm talking about like you just reach over and you got like a packet of applesauce, bang, and like you just keep going. Maybe there's a banana in the car. You sprinkle some cereal. Like,
I think that they would die if they took a hand off the steering wheel.
yeah, fair.
Yeah. But I think I have to attend to my screaming child.
Yeah, you
Been
should probably
screaming
do
for
that.
10 minutes.
You got to get G on the up on those tactics.
I don't know. We have like a spare like reserve for him. I don't understand
Did
what's
you do
going
the
on.
thing where like you hold him like this and you hold him like a football out in front of
Oh, I
you?
did. I did do the video that you sent me where you like hold the baby out or something like that.
Yeah,
It did work, but my God, like what a shoulder workout. Like you can't do it for that long.
it's anabolic.
I like tell you, I did it. It worked, but I can't hold the baby out there for that long. It just doesn't work.
You should You should have a challenge between you and G and see who can hopefully be there longest.
You know, he's been saying he's been having a lot of, like he's been hitting new PRs since having the baby because holding the baby, it's like you're like whenever you're holding a baby, it's like an isometric contraction, right? You're just like holding it, right? And actually, it's quite a good workout. And he's been having new PRs, and he thinks it's attributed to the baby.
Yes, but for the wrong reason. It is not for that reason. Every man in America who just had a baby, who has a child, can attest to this. The concept of dad strength exists. When you create a child, you become much stronger for no apparent reason.
Really?
It's you won't find anyone that disputes it. Everyone just gets they just inherit this dad strength, and they just get stronger. It's a thing.
I feel like we should pull up some studies next time and have a discussion around this.
I don't think there's going to be studies that you're going to find on it. It's just a thing that's accepted.
I will not accept it as that. They're like, what's the reason behind there? I must know.
Testosterone. I'm kidding. All right, so that's going to wrap it up here. It's been a fun episode, albeit we might have had a controversial take or two thrown in there, but definitely some interesting topics that encourage a lot of productive debate, which is always the aim of the show. So if you like the show, feel free to tell us about it in the DMs, in the comment section that will be beneath this video. And that's all for me.
Thanks, Anthony. Talk to you later. I can't talk anymore. It's time for me to leave.